Those who have been in corporate management for the last quarter of the century or so might have noticed an interesting twist that the imminent advent of the artificial general intelligence, or AGI, has had on the set of requirements that large organizations put forward when hiring for the positions of leadership. At the beginning of this century, a good general manager was not expected to have a deep technical skill, although the history of progressing through the ranks of the organization sometimes apparently helped. A former shop floor mechanic could become a CEO, but upon closer inspection, the thing that put them into the executive position was either sheer political savvy or, much more often than not, being a son of a former CEO who thought it would be funny to make his son learn to piss on the heads of the middle management from an apparently inconsequential position within the organization. The key managerial skill in those golden days was the ability to have a vision of the outcomes that were worth pursuing on a corporate scale, and the ability to articulate that vision in such a way that would mobilize the productive forces of the organization, mostly operated by human employees at the time, in achieving that vision. Critical thinking, determination, verbal ability, and male sex were all that was needed to be a successful manager. To become one, you generally had to come from the right background, have good connections, or happen to be at the right time in the right place, where, of course, you could only get with the right background and good connections. Around 2015, as the technology sector of the economy was building momentum, many pundits would notice that the technical ability was getting prominence in the leadership skill set. CEOs and VPs were able to write code and bragged about it, which was, of course, nonsense. The code they wrote was trivial and was a complete waste of shareholder money when the executive compensation was taken into account. But this neat idea unleashed voracious demand among broad masses for the coding tutorials on YouTube, which quickly turned into a wildfire when COVID made people think that the only productive work to be done would only be done online. Technology companies would hire the newly minted software engineers by tens of thousands, which nobody was paying much attention to, until the tide has turned and people started flooding LinkedIn with chilling stories of tens of thousands of people laid off from the same technology companies. Fast forward to 2026, when the new AI-driven coding tools are making anyone with only high-level understanding of software engineering write production-grade code. The same general management abilities of the late 90s are back in vogue. Once again, the important skills are the ability to acquire a vision of what has to be done and the ability to articulate that vision in clear, tight prose. A deployment of an agentic AI capability is no longer software deployment in a traditional sense. It is more like creating a new organizational unit within your company that will have access to your IT systems, but also will collaborate with other organizational units in order to achieve its goals and objectives within the guardrails that you set. You no longer need a thick checkbook to hire an engineering VP who already understands your industry and has a decade of engineering experience. Yet, before your AI-driven engineering vice president goes off and spawns AI employees and builds an engineering capability within your company, it is still a very good idea to have a clear vision for this new engineering organization, the goals that you want the organization to work towards, and the objectives that you are going to use to measure the progress towards those goals. You no longer need to deal with human politics of greed and motivation, and thank God for that, but you still need to have critical thinking, determination, and good verbal ability, and make sure you make good use of them. Thank you for listening and subscribing. I'm Alex Chadyuk, and this is AGI.